going to do the Q&A video today. These are questions you guys asked on my last giveaway video, so if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, what's up with that? You should go ahead and do that at some point because I would love to answer them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. So you asked, what is my favorite genre of book and what is my least favorite? I'm a huge fan of dystopian. I really like everything that is alternate history. So anything that kind of takes today and moves forward in such a way of like how it could go, or anything that goes back into the past and changes something and is like, if Hitler didn't die, what would have happened, or something like that. I think that's really cool. My least favorite genre is definitely like romance and contemporary. I'm not a very romantic human being. There are definite exceptions to that because I have read some contemporary books and I've read some romance books that I actually did really enjoy. But on the whole, as a genre, I don't tend to like stories that are rooted solely in two people getting together. I like it if it has another plotline going through it, or if there's like, you know, a heist happening at the same time, or, you know, aliens are coming down and invading. That makes it a lot more interesting to me if there's a romance. So, second question, where is it to read? I don't really have a favorite place to read. I can read anywhere. I read in the car, I read in my bed, I read in my living room, but mostly I read in between classes or during class or at work. So I tend to do the biggest part of my reading during my work time. When I have downtime, I just kind of hang out in the back and read a book, or when I'm in a really boring class on science. How do you decide how you organize your bookshelf? As you can see, I have organized it sort of rainbowish. That's a word. So I've had it alphabetically before, I've had it alphabetical by author, I've had it by series, and right now I'm feeling the color scheme. I don't know what the thing is, but I really like rainbows. When did you start reading? I started reading, oh boy, I was really young when I started reading. I must have been like 4 years old or something ridiculous. And when I first started reading, I was reading like books. I wasn't just reading like little, like the picture books and stuff. I mean, I remember picking up like really intense books when I was a kid. It was weird. Which book got you hooked on reading? I want to say that it was Jane Eyre. I don't think I was much of a reader before that, and I read that when I was 9. It was either Jane Eyre or The Hobbit. I read them both when I was 9, and they were sort of a family thing, like we all sat down and read them, so I think I would say either one of those two. I don't remember which one. What was the first book that you read that you absolutely could not put down? Now, my brain wants to say Harry Potter because it's kind of true that I did just sit down and kind of binge read it, but I did put it down because I got really, really scared. I was really young. I was like 10, maybe 11, and I was so scared. So I got to the scene in the Forbidden Forest when Quirrell, Voldemort, whatever, is like sitting over the unicorn drinking its blood, and I just got so grossed out and freaked out that I had to put it down. So I made my mom read it, and so she could tell me what happened after that, and then so she told me, and then I went on and kept reading. So I guess I did put that down, but it's not because I didn't like it, it was because I was too afraid to keep reading. So it was, I didn't want to put it down. Okay. What's your favorite memory regarding books? Absolutely has to be, I was about 9, and I was sitting around in the living room with my dad and my mom, and we were reading The Hobbit. And we would take turns reading chapters out loud to each other, and I just thought that was kind of, like, this may be this is gonna get a little bit weird and kind of sad, but that's like the last time I really remember, like, my family being really, like, a family. As I got older, I just got into, like, I started dancing, and it was just, like, I was never home, and my dad's always working, so our family time was really not a thing once I hit middle school, because I was just so involved with school and everything. But I definitely have to say that that memory is probably the reason that books are so important to me, and it was just such a big part of my life at that time, and sort of informed the rest of my reading life. Have you ever read a book that has changed the way you thought about something or influenced you in some way? So this is a huge yes for me. This is a recent discovery of mine, actually. I did a sort of psychoanalysis of myself for a nonfiction class where I wrote this epic humor piece about why my life is ridiculous, and it turns out that when I was like 9 or 10 years old, I was at the bookstore with my mom, and she kind of went off on her own. I picked up this humongous biography of Henry VIII, which is probably why I'm a history major, actually, come to think of it. Anyway, so she went off in some corner to go buy books, and I curled up by myself to read this book, and when she asked if I wanted anything, I picked it up and I was like, I want this. So I took it home, read it in a couple of weeks. This is like an 800-page colossus of a book. Huge. I mean, it's like tiny print, and I'm like 10. So I got through this book, which is ridiculous, and it completely changed the way I thought about the world, because, I mean, Henry VIII is kind of harsh. It's kind of a harsh story. I mean, he's got 6 wives, and he dumps them all for hotter women. So here I am at a young age, already with this bias in my life of, like, men will always dump you for the hotter chick, you know? Plus, I viewed my role model as Anne Boleyn, his second wife, who gets beheaded in the end. Spoiler alert. But, yeah, so she gets beheaded in the end. So my lifelong goal was basically to get beheaded, which is ridiculous. So I went through life with this kind of massive fear of men. And I only realized this, like, a couple of months ago, that I've been operating under the assumption that all men out there will hurt me. And then if they don't, I'm just disappointed that they didn't hold up to my expectation of them disappointing me, which is really bizarre and weird. So when I read the biography of Henry VIII, it totally screwed my perception of relationships and genders and all that kind of stuff. So that really influenced the way I think about the world. What was the last book that really surprised me? This is a tough one because I'm not easily surprised by books. Books tend to be very predictable for me. I'm not easily surprised by a book. But I have to say, I guess it would have been Robinson Wells' Variant and Feedback. And that book was like a giant mind screw. Can I say that other word? Probably not. It really, really screwed with my head. And the ending was just like this, what the hell happened? I don't even know. So that book really did surprise me because I was not expecting what happened at all. Not necessarily in a good way because the ending was not conclusive for me. I need a third book and there's not going to be a third book. So that's a little disappointing, but overall it was extremely surprising. At every twist and turn I was like, what just happened? I don't even know. So that was kind of cool. What was the last book that really let you down in a big way? I would have to say Beautiful Creatures. I was expecting a lot from that book. I was expecting Southern Gothic romance and like epic magic and cool historical crap, and I got Southern Gothic romance and cool magical crap and historical romance. It was kind of like half-assed the whole way for me, is how I felt about it. And I know a lot of people really love those books, so I don't mean to like be a downer on anyone who likes them. It's just that for me, they fell flat. What is your favorite adult series and standalone book? Okay, adult series is tough because most adult books aren't series, but I'm going to go with this because they're kind of series. Philippa Gregory's books. They're historical fiction about the Tudor period, so like Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII, again. I love those. The Other Boleyn Girl is one of them. It's not my favorite though, and so I really like those. And then my favorite standalone book, I'm going to go with Between Shades of Grey. I just finished it. It's the one about the Lithuanian girl during the Soviet occupation. It's really, really good. Are there any books I have bought because of the cover? Yes. I bought the selection purely because the cover is so freaking gorgeous I couldn't not have it. It turns out I really liked it too, which was a nice bonus. What book that you've read this year do you see yourself rereading in the future? I would say I would probably reread Legend and Prodigy, Marie Lu's series, because they're really good. And also, I'm going to need a refresher course before Champion comes out. Top 10 books of all time: Harry Potter, the Georgia Nicholson series, The Princess Bride, Legend, Hunger Games, Howl's Moving Castle, Rot and Ruin, Jane Eyre, The Hobbit, and The Constant Princess by Philippa Gregory. If I can only read 5 books for the rest of my life, what would they be? I think I would go with, like, the last 5 books of the Harry Potter series. Honestly. If I was going to be stranded on a desert island and could only take one book, I would probably take either The Princess Bride or Howl's Moving Castle, because they're both gigantic, like, epic adventures that I just feel really happy about when I read. So probably one or the other. I don't know which one. If you had to choose one book that you would reread every year but could still read other books as well, what would you pick? I would absolutely pick Jane Eyre. I still do that, actually. I reread it every single year, at least. It's just something that really resonates with my life, so I just really like that story. Is there any book or series that you absolutely hated that most people loved? Going back to Beautiful Creatures, I did not enjoy it, but I know a lot of people really did like it. Have you ever been spoiled on a book? If so, how did it change your reading? Or have you ever accidentally or purposefully spoiled yourself by flipping forward? I can't ever really remember being spoiled for a book, ever really, but I have definitely done the thing where I skipped forward because I wanted to find out what happened next. Usually though, it's because I'm astronomically bored and I'm just like, oh, when is the next good part? So I skip forward to the next chapter to see if something epic happens at the end of the chapter. And if it's like a book for school or something, I'll just skip forward because honestly, who cares? Hardcover or paperback, and why? I usually go for hardcover if I can, just because I like the feel of the book in my hands. It's a lot heavier and it's easier to like do bookmarks. You can just use the flap, which is great, but I end up with paperback a lot because it's cheaper and I'm really poor. Good tangent. Monthly book buying budget. I don't give myself a monthly book buying budget because, as I am aforementioned, very, very poor. I'm a college student, what can you do? I have to buy books for school instead. So I really don't have a budget for books. I generally don't buy books if I can help it, and I usually end up with a budget that is out of, if I sell books back to a bookstore, whatever they give me in credit. That's kind of my book buying budget, and that tends to be somewhere around $15. What's your biggest bookish pet peeve? I'm not sure what this is referring to exactly, if it's like about books in general, or if it's about me reading them or what, but I'm just gonna say what I think, and my biggest bookish pet peeve is when they change the freaking covers midway through the series. It drives me insane because I want all of them to match, they don't match, they're not pretty on the shelf, and it makes me really angry. Moving on. Do you read one or more books at a time? I read probably around 3 books at a time sometimes. I do recall sitting in my living room with like a stack of 5 books, and I would read one chapter out of each, and I would cycle through them. And it was because I was reading Bossy Pants by Tina Fey, and I felt like I couldn't read it all at once. I felt like I had to read each story separately, so I would punctuate it with different books, and that was kind of cool. How do you manage to read a lot of books in a month? I don't read a lot of books in a month. The most I read is like 7 in a month, and that was huge. Like, I never do that. My average tends to be about 4. And I just do it because, like, I can read in between classes, and read during class. I don't have a whole lot of time on my hands. I'm always working and always in class and stuff, so I don't really have a lot of time to do things. But I try to squeeze in as many books as I can. How long does it take you to read books? That really depends on the book. If it's a really long book or a really dense book, it can take me months. Like, I've been reading the first Lord of the Rings book for like 3 years now, and I still haven't gotten through it. But I also just sat down and read Between Shades of Grey over the course of about 2 days. So I can sit down and read a book in one sitting if I have to, or if I want to. But there are definitely those books that I just don't do that with because they're so dense, or I feel like I need time to digest them, or I just don't have time. What is your opinion on ebooks, e-readers, and audiobooks? Those are kind of 3 separate questions. Ebooks, I think it's great. I love it. I just got my own Kindle, and it's fantastic. I love reading books on there. I am definitely a little bit worried that the real book is going to go out of fashion, because I really do love the real book, but I'm not too worried because I think there will always be a market for real books. As far as audiobooks go, I love audiobooks as well. I find them very useful. I can sit down and like knit a scarf while I listen to a book, or, you know, I can put a book on while I'm doing my makeup and my hair. I also really like to fall asleep to books on audio, and I have basically the entire Harry Potter series on audio, and I started listening to them when I was a little kid, and I developed a British accent because I would fall asleep listening to them, which was really funny. So for a couple of years, and like, I must have been in like 2nd or 3rd grade, I had like a weird kind of Britishy accent. What do you think of the new genre, new adult? I think it's fantastic. I think we've needed it for a really long time. New adult is it's just so needed. I think that the readers of young adult tend to actually be young adults, not teens. And so I wish that young adult was actually young adult and that teens was a genre, because I feel like we need to make that distinction. But with new adult, I feel like that kind of works too. And I think the problem with new adult is that a lot of people think that it's just young adult with sex, and I don't think that's true. I think it's young adult similar in terms of like pacing and ideas, but I think it allows for more adult ideas as far as the struggles the characters are going through. Like, the characters could be in college instead of in high school. They might be dealing with rent issues, or, you know, boyfriends that may be treating them poorly. I feel like that's a lot more effective in a new adult genre than in the young adult genre, because as far as young adult goes, you can't really explore that in a whole lot of detail without getting too risque.